From the beginning of scientific observation, mankind has always looked to the stars. Some say it holds the key to within, while others say that it is the doorway back out. Sadly, as we argue, we forget to pause and take a step back and see that both sides are right. For years, we've been holding the key in our hand, moving past the fact that the simplicity of the zodiac explains certain things that we trifle over. Plato was one of the first of many great minds to understand that the zodiac had more than just scientific applications, and throughout history we can find it as it lays hidden from us. I know many of you are saying, wait, isn't the zodiac the thing that those hokey astrologers use to generate a horoscope? And my response would be, yes, it is. But those are vague general overviews of the entire population. It's not attuned for you because they forget to take an effect that there's the moon. But also, I'd like to remind you that how many things do you know of people have created for an initial design and use, and then in turn misuse that? To understand the zodiac, we must look at its original uses. The first to use the zodiac would be sailors who would travel out into the ocean days on end and have nothing to judge where they were at except the horizon of more ocean. Out of the highs and lows that the ocean gave them, the only thing that stayed constant would be the stars above, twinkling to them to guide them. If you've heard a sailor say, "I have my bearings," or "I see the northern star," that was how they were able to navigate using the zodiac to understand the correlation between where they were at and the stars. There were also farmers who used the zodiac. They would use it like an almanac. It would help them understand when the season was right to plant their crops to ensure a harvest, and then from there it would fine-tune to understand when the best day to plant for maximum crop yieldage would be. Originally in the zodiac, there were 13 zodiacs. The 13th, which we all know to be unlucky, would be Ophiuchus, who is the serpent bearer, which says a lot about Earth's culture if you actually research it. But for this assignment, we're going to use the general 12 zodiac signs that you usually see in a horoscope. Now these 12 signs, they move in an ecliptic pattern around Earth, or so it appears. But this is due to a precession of the equinoxes, and how the sun moves through these equinoxes is truly what the zodiac means. Humans, they are simple creatures. They create and then they destroy, they create and then they destroy. And all the while, as they meddle, they ask themselves, why? In the beginning, when rationale was only as deep as we allowed it to be, we looked to the sky, and the things that we saw there, we deemed them as holy or supernatural. When the darkness was on the land, the people were fearful with frightened minds of what lurked in the shadows. The cold and the unknown were perceived as evil, simply because they did not understand what it was. So when the sun rose, it brought them warmth and salvation. No longer would they be blind in the night, and now they could see in the day. No longer would the cold and unknown be there, and now they could plant crops, and they would grow. And they praised the sun for it. So as the sun rose and set and the years passed, they began to calculate the movement of the earth. They understood that the earth had a wobble to it, which every 26,000 years would complete a cycle known as the precession of the equinoxes, which was rediscovered and named by Hipparchus. The sun, as it sat within the 12 zodiac signs, would spend about 2,200 years in each sign, known as an aeon or an age. Now, as the sun moved through these aeons, it would calculate what era we were in, so we could understand how the equinox was progressing. As of right now, we are in the age of Pisces, which is known as the two fish. Soon we will be in Aquarius, which is known as the water bearer. The age before this one was known as Aries, the ram, and the age before that was the golden calf age, known as Taurus, the bull. If we look closer, we will find the esoteric and the rigid structure that we call religion. And if you're blind to this, wait. For the sun will come up and it will give you the ability to see. As we evolved mentally, we began to anthropomorphize everything in order to set and define a reason and purpose. This is why the zodiac is divided into 12 animals, so that we may understand and correlate with the attributes of the animals and the effects that they have within us. The sun's role is also apparent not just in the zodiac, but over many regions and religions as well. If you look at Apollo, Mithra, or Horus, they all appear to be different deities, but in reality, they're all the same exact solar deity. You might ask me, well, how do you know this? And my simple but rational answer would be, look outside. How many suns do you see as of now? Which, if you think about this a little bit deeper, it kind of gives you the sense of the potato-potato argument when we're all arguing about the same thing and we're all right about the same thing, but for some reason we perceive differences within us. To better understand the role of the sun, we must first look at what we define as a year. Now, we can define a year in two ways. We can do it, one, as a lunar model, or we can do it, two, as how the Earth rotates around the sun. For this example, we are going to be using the solstices as the Earth rotates around the sun. There are 4 different solstices. There's the spring, summer, fall, and winter, which you're looking at, oh, they're seasons. Well, that's really all they are. Now, to understand what a solstice is, we must see that the summer solstice is when there will be more light than darkness on the Earth. So, more daytime than nighttime. Now, the winter solstice is when there will be more darkness than there will be daytime. And like I said, we're simple creatures, so we think with simple minds. And back then, we had no way of knowing that, well, there was space up there. So, since a lot of our culture derived from the southern hemisphere around Egypt and Babylonia and all those places there, we must understand when they looked up to the stars, their position on Earth was different than ours. So how they saw things is when the winter solstice came on around December 21st, 22nd, the sun would sit on the horizon and it would not move. It would appear to have died. For 3 days this bad boy sat there and it did nothing. It'd rise up, drop down, that'd be a day. Rise up, drop down, be day 2. Rise up, drop down, be day 3. Now, on the last day before it rises again, there's a constellation in Orion's belt known as the Three Kings, which, ironically enough, it's known today and way back when as the Three Kings. They point with correlation to Sirius to where the sun will rise on Earth the next day. Now, the 25th of December, the sun will rise perfectly 1 degree north, and it will set itself up off of the horizon and align itself with the eastern star Sirius and the Three Kings, which is the belt in Orion. Now, you might say, oh, that's kind of trivial, but when you understand this, this is what makes spring and Christmas and Easter and fall, all those things, it makes sense why we perceive them as evil. So, I leave you with this just to give you a little insight that there's a lot more esoteric things going on than we really are led to believe. I thank you for coming along with me on this journey, and I encourage you to look deeper, because there's a lot more that's there than they ever want us to be led on to.